dear ladies, dear gentlemen. On behalf of New Direction and its president, Tomasz Poręba, I would like to welcome you today for our first event. Today we will present the book of Dominika Ćosić, her book, Balkan Express. However, before starting to listen to you and to your story, I would like to introduce you Mr. Teri Shultz, Polish MEP, or I should say senior Polish MEP, sitting in the AFET committee since 2004. Before that, he was a diplomat and he became an expert on energy. Mr. Teri Shultz, thank you very much for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. It's English or what? English, okay.
But you can say Serbian.
Vale pas. It's a very personal book, but at the first glance, is the history between me and former Yugoslavia. Me, it's Dominika Ćosić. But I would like to draw your attention that it is a very, very political book. If you read, then take a distance and then think. It's around various histories, personal ones, with what we today call Western Balkans. Yugoslavia. So it's personal and nostalgic. On my side, it's also personal. Let me just tell you that once upon a time, and that's chapter 8. Chapter 8?
Yes, I think so.
I went, now I can disclose, a special envoy with a confidential mission to Belgrade on behalf of the EPP party. And I was accompanied at my request by an expert. So Dominika then, for me, was a knowledgeable person, understanding the deep roots of Serbia, Yugoslavia, Western Balkans, where the things were on the edge of decision, whether we should go forward with enlargement. This was the question I was asked by one of the TV teams here, or not necessarily, where Serbia would be. And it was at the time which later on I was in Dutch Parliament fighting for non-exclusion by the traumatic experience of Netherlands, of Serbia, from the European path. I won't tell you in details, but in terms of then the main political force in the parliament, but it was common to many other political forces. The path towards European destiny for Western Balkans was never closed. It was a fight. It is still a problem. There are laggards on our side, I mean our EU, and I won't say that some of them are most guilty, and those the most guilty are France and Germany. And that is linked to my another experience of the dramatic choices which former Yugoslavia and then Balkan countries faced. I was Europe Minister of a non-member country, Poland, present at the AFET meeting in the European Parliament when the tanks were heading towards Ljubljana. I was invited by accident to that AFET meeting, and there was a Slovenian delegation sitting there, and there was a quarrel between then MEP Otto von Habsburg, if this name tells you something, and a French strategic thinker, François Hesbourg. Slovenians were pleading, Europe, please come and stop war, and Europe was doing nothing, because France and Germany were quarreling, according to the dividing lines of the times of the First World War, where Serbia was France and Croatia was German ally. Then you'll probably find in different sources which will tell you that the true guilt of the way, maybe avoidable, of dissolution. Why not velvet dissolution of Yugoslavia if, like Czechoslovakia, that the true guilt is on the side of then Minister Genscher. I was witness of those times, and I think there is something behind it. But we have German MEP Maximilian Krach with us. Anyway, so it is this nostalgic of this lost dream of Yugoslavia, which is somewhere also in the thought of Habsburg nostalgia, where the war started, and where, not counting Russia-Ukraine war today, was the main war we had on our continent, which has poisoned European history because of the same indecisiveness and hesitation and cowardice which Union is guilty of today. So this is a political background, but it's very much the personal history of Dominika Ćosić, who understands, as nobody could, the history, the dramatic history, and the human history of these countries, or this country. I remember walking in Belgrade once from I then met prime ministers and heads of parliament and foreign minister, and I've seen the buildings destroyed by the bomb shells of NATO. And she explaining to me that Serbia was for 600 years the antemuralis of Christianity, and every generation has paid a tribute of losing half of its male population in wars against Ottoman invasion and occupation. Europe, and here I say Western Europe, is completely, until today, ignorant about the history and the fate of this part of Europe, which is equally important for our common heritage as, be it Portugal, I mean, those faraway countries which even today slow down what is inevitable, which means to complete the European integration process by taking those countries finally into our ranks. So it's personal from Dominika, the author. Also I am also not very objective judge, as you might have seen. But I think that one thing which still remains an open question, but we share this with the author, with Dominika Ćosić, that the question whether the history of former Yugoslavia and the remnants of the once Habsburg Empire and the Antemuralis Christianis has had to finish so tragically as it did, and my non-answer is it was evitable. We could have avoided. So thank you for this personal touch, which speaks volumes about the political history of this part of Europe, and perhaps will bring more attention of the journalists and public opinion in Europe to this forgotten, quoting the title of Timothy Snyder, Bloodlands. Yugoslavia is a bloodland, like Eastern Europe, Belarus, Ukraine today, as he wrote. It's also touching to read the book, because there are so many vivid, personal, sentimental feelings behind, about people being met, the description of their fates, and tragic fates of terror, war, blood, and so on. Suffering, tears, which are still the heritage of this part of Europe. So I think that these few words of mine will encourage you to read and to think in this historical, political context with a glimpse of feeling of our European responsibility for our Balkan brothers. Let me finish on a positive note. I believe, and we have to be architects of that the history of Western Balkans will finish well as Dominika writes, when the lost golden bracelet, after years being lost, which is a metaphor for Western Balkans, was finally and happily and luckily found. That I wish that this reflection accompanies your reading and then spreading this reflection which we owe to Western Balkans and which we owe to Europe, because it's Europe. Thank you.
Dear Mr. Saryusz-Wolski, thank you for this great poetical introduction. Merci beaucoup. Now we can move on to the interview stage of our event. But first of all, I would like to say thank you to Dominika for your trust. We were very happy that we could publish your book in English. Also to let you know that the original version has been published in Polish in Poland by OMP, a leading conservative think tank in Poland. Today you will be interviewed by Teri Shultz, American freelance journalist. You are covering mainly EU affairs and NATO also, and you used to work for CBS and for Fox News. Yes? More or less. And CNN. Okay. I stopped at Fox News. I was already happy with that. I know also that you have to leave at 7 p.m. because you have an important statement, because you have another problem on the eastern flank. But as you are the moderator today, I mean, it will be up to you to finish on time. Thank you very much.
To do that all the time. Thank you very much. I'm honored that my friend Dominika has asked me to be here. But we did just get the Secretary General has just announced, NATO has just announced that the letter has been delivered to Moscow, and he will suddenly have a press conference at 7 to discuss this letter. And so she had time to arrange coverage of her station, and I will have to hop off and join the press conference. But before that, I really hope that we can have a great discussion. And we would also like to give you a chance, if somebody wants to ask a question of Dominika while we're discussing, please raise your hand, because you will have time afterwards, because she will have a glass of wine with you while I'm on the press conference, I believe. Sorry about this. I'm quite loud anyway. We would really like to bring in more discussion from people in the audience. I think that can only enrich our conversation here. So I first met Dominika at NATO. Do you even remember this?
Yes.
You introduced yourself to me in the cafeteria. And
Yes, I think that it's working.
are these on? We both are loud.
I think that we have met 15 years or
Yeah.
17 years ago.
No, 50. I've only been here 15, so yeah, long enough.
Something like this.
Yeah. Yes, and you introduced yourself to me in the cafeteria and said, "Hey, I'm a Polish journalist and I'm here all the time. Let's be friends." That's literally what she said, and so we were friends, and so we are. So I'm just incredibly impressed by this book. The detail that is just gorgeous when a journalist writes and talks about how things smelled and how things looked and the way people talked in the train cars, and it really brings to life and to death the experience of the dissolution of this country. And I think that most of us, having covered it, having read about it from the outside, could not have understood the depth of feeling if we didn't read books like this from people who feel it so personally. And as you told me, Dominika, this was not just about politics. This was about, honestly, the mentality and the breaking of your heart and the searching for pieces of it. In something like you made 22 trips. 22
years of trips.
22 years of trips, and sort of searching for ways to put your heart back together, didn't you? And the loss of your Yugoslavia.
Yes, when I was a child, I used to describe myself that I'm half Polish, half Yugoslavian. Ja sam Polakinia, Pola Jugoslovenka. Because in this time it was still Yugoslavia, and I consider my Serbian. Now I say Serbian family as a Yugoslavian. I had two motherlands. First it was, of course, Poland, and second was Yugoslavia. it was a time when Yugoslavia was comparing with Poland and many countries from this former communist bloc. It was a much more richer country, much more powerful, richer, with good things in the shops. Yes. And they had passport. They were able to travel across the world. In Poland, we didn't have even sort of passport at home because because it was not allowed to possess this, and we were not able to travel. So
Sorry, I'm really sorry. It's David. Sorry, David. I'm moderating something with Dominika right now, and that was an accidental call. Sorry. No, I wish it were Blinken. It's not.
we'll
Sorry,
call
I'm
later
hanging
on.
up on you.
I tell himself.
They don't call me. They don't call me.
He can't come.
They don't call me.
He was
Sorry,
excusing
I'm
why
really sorry,
didn't-
Dominika. Work
Yes.
never stops.
Yes, and let me say something about my family, because as I told, I'm half Polish, half Serbian. My mom is from Kraków, traditional Polish Catholic family, and my father was from not traditional family because he had only mother. His father has been killed by Germans just on the end of the war. Both of parents of my father, they were partisans in Yugoslavian partisan army of Marshal Tito, communist one. And my grandmother was very unusual woman because she spent 5 years in forest fighting as a soldier during Second War, fighting with Nazis, with German. So, and later on she had to be single parent, single mother for my father. What in a country like Yugoslavia, which is very masculine, is even more difficult than now in other countries in
Except
Europe.
she loved football so much she
Yes,
fit
and
in.
she had few patients. Communist Party, unfortunately, but she believed in this. Football and politics, and Marshal Tito. And she admired Marshal Tito. She had many pictures of Marshal Tito at home. And my Polish grandmother used to teach me how to pray, how to and Polish patriotic poems, and how to be and savoir vivre as well. And my Serbian grandmother, she teach me how to salute on the when I see face of the Tito in television. And she teach me that Tito was the biggest hero ever, even in the world. And one grandmother, she was Catholic, believing in God. Second was communist, believing in communism. And what is very unusual and very nice, they like each other. They really liked each other and respect each other. It was deeply friendship between my both grandmothers and my both families, Polish and Serbian. So it was my very nice childhood, even when my parents divorced and we came back to Poland. Every year, every summer, we are traveling with my mom to Belgrade for holiday, to spend holiday with my Serbian family. And it was very nice time. And exactly 30 years ago, I was passing exams to the high school in Poland, and I saw in television, I watched in Polish television, that there are tanks, you mentioned, going, Yugoslavian tanks going to Ljubljana and later on to Croatia. And it was for me real shock. It was for me trauma because I couldn't understand what's going on, what is happening in my country, why some people are fighting with other people from the same country. I knew that there are Slovenians, Croats, Serbs, but that there are differences between them, but I couldn't understand why this country started to collapse, why the war started, especially that...
Why there was hatred, I mean.
Yes, especially that we used to think that the Second War was the last one in the Europe, that it is over, that we are living in peaceful time. And now we are facing war in Europe, not in Africa, not in Asia, but in Europe, in 2 hours from Brussels by plane, a few hundred kilometers from Kraków, from Poland. And it was such brutal, such barbaric, and all sides have hands in blood. It was no innocent, no guilty, fully guilty, because all parts of this country have been in the same level, innocent and guilty. So for me it was shock. I started to discover my identity again. What is my family? Who am I? I discovered that I'm half Serbian, not Yugoslavian. Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore. And that's why I decided to study Serbian and Croatian philology at Jagiellonian University in Krakow to understand by history, by literature, what was the reason of this war, what was the background of the war, why it was so hatred, and it helps me a lot. But and then, as a journalist, I started to travel to all former Yugoslavian republics, starting in 1997, and after 9 years of break, I came for the first time after the war to Yugoslavia, to Serbia, to Novi Sad in Serbia, and then to Belgrade after 9 years of my absence there, and it was shock. Of course, in Belgrade, it was not yet war, but it was visible that something has changed, because I remember very rich country, beautiful with people in very nice clothes, and I saw country very poor, with poor people, sad and hopeless, and it was visible shock. And what was even more shocking for me, it was the image of many young men without hand, without arm. They have been war veterans.
Already at a young age.
Yes.
And I remember one scene in the book where, particularly about food, people didn't have enough to eat, and that's really shocking. They would go to, I believe, Montenegro and buy food because it was cheaper, and bring it back, and some child made a really tasteless joke about how you kill old people. You give them 200 marks, and they go buy so much food and eat it that they die of sausage. And I mean, and you were shocked by that,
Yes.
and shocked that people had come, that both the economic situation had come to this, and that the sort of lack of feeling, lack of sensitivity had come to this in children, in a country that you had known only as a wealthy, well-to-do, relatively wealthy, well-to-do country.
Yes, and it was also visible in mentality, because first it was this visible material side, because I was comparing, for example, we've been hosted by university in Novi Sad, and one day one of our colleagues, Serbian student, invited us to his room, and he had very poor clothes from second hand, and he had nothing to eat, but he wanted to share his food with us. It is Serbian hospitality that even if you don't have nothing, you have to share with your guest. And it was so sad to observe this. And later on, I discovered even more tragical stories. Like, for example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I came to a special center for women. In this center were women victims of war rapes. They've been raped during the war, and it is huge problem. It was there are different speculations. It's around 80,000 and 100,000 women from all Yugoslavia who has been victims of war rapes. They have been raped by Croats, Serbs, Albanians, every side. And the most tragic situation, I think, was with Muslim Bosnian women, because for the Muslim family, when a woman is raped, she is guilty. I see my Muslim friends from Afghanistan, from Turkey, and you know that the woman who was a victim of rape is considering that she was guilty because she provoked maybe. So these women who has been victims first of rapers, second they have been victims of their families, because many families expelled them. They told that you should not live with us because you are dirty. And they became in a very difficult situation. Some of them have been pregnant, and they found some who have been more lucky. They went abroad and started new life in Sweden, Netherlands, Germany. The others came to special centers for women in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it was very shocking to listen to stories of these women. And after even few years after the war, for them it was like it happened yesterday. It was so fresh, it was so tragic, so current. It was one of these meetings I still remember, I still have in mind. But it was also some less known victims, like for example gypsies. I use the term gypsy, not Roma, because gypsy is Roma. It is only one of the group. And Gypsy, you have many groups of ethnic groups considered as a Gypsy. And I met them, for example, in Kosovo. And let me say some, maybe it is anecdote, but it is black humor typical for Balkans. That, in Kosovo, it was traditional origin of Serbia. But on the beginning of 20th century, Serbian people became to be minority more and more. And together with Serbs and Albanian, it was many Gypsies in Kosovo. And when it was still Yugoslavia, Gypsy had a very difficult situation because they've been just destined to have the simplest work for the very small salary. And they have been, Serbs treated them as honestly, I have to say this, as a second-class category of citizens.
Still true.
It's true, unfortunately, but it's true. But when, after the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia in 1999, when ethnic cleansing started in Kosovo and Serbs has been pushed off kicked off from Kosovo and they had to leave, they escaped from Kosovo and they have been persecuted by Albanians. Also Gypsies have been victims from the side of Albanians. Why? Because Albanians said that Gypsies were collaborating with Serbs. So now they have been again guilty. And it was a very funny situation, tragic and funny, when on the end of 90s, it was I think the 2001 year or 2002, some Gypsy people came to ambassador of Egypt in Belgrade and they asked for asylum, political asylum in Egypt. And he told, okay, but why do you want to go to Egypt? What do you have in common with Egypt? And they told, because we Gypsy, we have Egyptian origin. Even word Gypsy came from Egypt. And we left Egypt together with Saint Maria and Jesus, and we came to Balkans. And now we would like to have Egyptian citizenship because of this, because we are originally from Egypt. It is of course not true, but some Serbian scientists told, yes, that's very true, and they delivered some papers because they wanted to have... yes? Because they wanted to prove that Albanians are not such a big majority in Kosovo. So even Serbs, academic Serbs, told, yes, they are right. They really came from Egypt together with Saint family.
So one thing I can say is that you were living in Belgium at the time that you made these trips, right?
I started my these trips when I was still in Krakow in Poland, and later I continued when I moved to Belgium, and I've visited all former Yugoslavian republic by many times, including Kosovo, of course, Montenegro, Macedonia. And also from Brussels, I was traveling, as Mr. Saryusz Wolski mentioned. Once it was a special trip, he asked me to be his advisor, and it was in very difficult moment because it was just after independence of Kosovo in 2008. When the atmosphere in Belgrade was very difficult, very sensitive. Honestly, in Belgrade, people hated both America and European Union because they recognized Kosovo. So it
not
was
all of them.
Yeah.
I think 5
5 years
still
yes,
don't.
Yes.
Right. But
yes, but most of them recognized, and that's why in Belgrade were massive manifestation against America and also against EU. And Mr. Saryusz Wolski was the first politicians from the EU, representative of the European Union. He was then head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, AFET, in the European Parliament, who came to Kosovo, to Serbia after this. So it was very difficult mission because, this mood was
he
not...
was the object of the anger then.
Possible, but hopefully he was not.
But my question was going to be, you came back here and that is a different world. So you would go there and you would just be immersed in who hates who supports who blames whom, and then you would come back to Brussels and it would sort of be, anodyne in comparison, or sort of, how did your mind go back and forth? That was living a complete double life in a sense, that you would go there and you would feel your Yugoslav half, your Serbian half, and you would have all of these ethnic conflicts and alliances just swirling around you, and then you would come back to Brussels where, you're a Polish journalist for us.
Yes, it was quite interesting, and I'm very happy that I had this experience with Balkan trips, because I was observing in the region what are the impact of this EU decision in the field. It is because here in Brussels we are in headquarter of everything, and we observe this headquarter, but we don't have very often chance to observe how it is working in the ground, in the field.
Working or not working.
Yes, working or not working. But thanks of this, I knew first how it was working, mostly not working, and then I came to headquarters, so it was interesting. But what is funny, before the pandemic, of course, when it was daily briefing in the European Commission, you noticed this, I guess, Teri, that the Balkans journalists, Serbs, Croats, Albanians, even from Kosovo, they keep together.
Absolutely.
There's only one group who was going every day to have a coffee in the cafeteria in the European Commission, and they were sitting together. Serbs, Croats, Macedonians, Montenegrins, Albanians, Augustin Palioku, for example, our friend.
Yep.
Yes,
Everybody's
and this we speak the same language still. We speak when we have coffee. We speak still Serbian, Croatian. It is still almost the same language.
And nobody feels that they're being discriminated against to speak a common language.
Yes.
But that reminds you, doesn't it, of how it was before, that people did get along and people did speak together and nobody attacked each other verbally or in any other way. So that must have been reassuring when you came back here and everybody found ways to get along.
Yes, that's true. And there is something which is calling Yugo-nostalgia. It is very common in all former Yugoslavian republics, especially in these who suffered the most, Bosnia and Herzegovina and maybe Macedonia, because it is very poor republic. And it is very strong feeling of Yugo-nostalgia. People still are listening to Yugoslavian music. They are watching very good Yugoslavian movies. Yugoslavian cinematography was really on very high level, and they are still producing very good movies. And many, especially elder people, still consider themselves as a Yugoslavian. There is very famous writer, Dubravka Ugrešić. She is originally half Croatian, half Bulgarian. Her mother was from Bulgaria, father was from Croatia, but she lives now in Netherlands. And she called herself that she is widow on Yugoslavia, that she is still mourning Yugoslavia, and she considers herself as a Yugoslavian. She didn't recognize that she is Croat. She says that she is Yugoslavian. And she wrote many books, excellent books, also about Yugo-nostalgia, about this feeling, about this war from this other side. And there are still people who says in mostly private conversation that, we are living very good together. I miss this time.
Yeah. When you were there, did you ever have the feeling that you wanted to stay? Because it's certainly a more, for you, a richer existence than coming back here and working. But I'm surprised in reading your stories and how drawn you were to the people there, to the experiences that you had there, and some of them with relatives. Why did you not ever decide, okay, I'm going to move back here and explore my Serbian side? You could have been a journalist for Serbian media.
I was thinking about this, but there are few obstacles. Every time when I'm for a long time abroad, far away from from Belgrade, from all this region, former Yugoslavia, I miss this. I miss this very much. I became Yugo-nostalgic. I'm watching Yugoslavian movies, listening Serbian music, preparing Serbian coffee, etc., etc. And I miss Yugoslavia, and it is like place of dream. But when I am going to to Belgrade, I will be maybe too frankly. After a few days, I want to go back because they are all
messy.
Because they are all smoking cigarettes. They are smoking 100 cigarettes. And I hated this smoke.
What's wrong with that?
Yes, as my mother used to say the same.
I feel offended.
But can you imagine my father? He was still smoking. he was finishing one cigarette and starting another one. He died, unfortunately, exactly 10 years ago. He had cancer of lungs, of course. And I asked him when I came to farewell him, I asked him, you know, I wanted to ask you all my life, how many cigarettes you used to smoke every day? And he thought, you know, usually it was like 4 packs per day, 80 cigarettes, 80.
Impossible.
Yes, that's true, because it was like never stopping. So now, Professor Legutko, you can understand why.
I quit, but
Oh, good.
still, the question of principle, yeah.
Yes.
Tell us more about
And,
your father.
and they are
Oh.
very noisy, and they
Yeah.
are very emotional, and they are. I like this, but sometimes it is disturbing when you are meeting completely new people, and those people ask you immediately, "How old are you? Are you married? Why
Where
are
are
you?"
your kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why you're not married? And don't worry, you will find husband here. I will find husband for you. And I say, I'm not looking for a husband. Don't worry, I have a brother. You will like him. And I have a son. I have come to our home. And they are inviting completely strange before they are inviting to home, offering food, drink for free. And they're hosting and they are happy. They are telling all stories about their whole life. And it is from the one side, it is a little bit disturbing, but from the other side, it is so lovely.
Yeah,
Because
very warm.
comparing with these official small talks in Brussels,
Yeah.
when the people talk mostly about business, about what's going on in the European Commission, what's going on in the Parliament, what about the new resolution, it is a different life,
Well, and the
completely different
culture
world.
is- It doesn't.
Yes.
They don't invite us home, foreigners home.
Yes.
And things like this.
Yes.
Tell us more about your father, because you and I have talked about your dad. What kind of things did you learn about your dad as you were looking into this? I mean, you were trying to learn about the dissolution of Yugoslavia, but you learned so much about your own family, especially about your own dad.
My father, that's strange story with him, because when I was a child, I knew that he is working in the Yugoslavian television. It was official version. Later on, I discovered that he was military. He was officially working
And
for the
even that's a
Yugoslavian.
euphemism.
Yes, working for the Yugoslavian television, but in fact he was working for the Yugoslavian Army Technical Institute. And I
Which means
discovered
he was
what
a-
was his profession. I discovered during his funeral. Because my father, he was atheist. It was no religious ceremony. It was only this ceremony, and instead of pope, instead of priest, it was friend of my father. They were studying together, they were working together, they were traveling together. They knew each other over 40 years, and he had kind of speech, and it was from the one side I was crying. I was you can imagine what you feel when you are mourning your father, and from the other side it was a little bit comic, because he had voice like our intonation like our former Polish president Komorowski. It was, you know, our dear Dragan Ćosić. He had brave sense. He had such a beautiful sense of humor. He was such a lovely person. We called him Cioso. And when we were going to polygons, and it was, this intonation was fun. And once I listened, and you know, our dear Dragan, he was one of the best experts in ballistic in all former Yugoslavia. It was him who constructed missile defense, numbered the name of roads and something. And I thought, oh my God, what he's saying. He should give some coordinates even, and some technical details. I was waiting that, but he didn't give. And he started to explain what my father was constructing. And it was for me like a shock, because I didn't know that my father was doing this. And it was fun. And also another fun. I know how it means that I used the word fun describing funeral of my father, but it is Yugoslavia. That you mix both tragic and fun stories. It is like Kusturica movie. Everything is together. It is not separated. And you know, there is tradition of alcohol, rakia, during the funeral. It is not on the end of funeral during a lunch in some special place, but it is exactly few steps from the grave. It was a table with alcohol, with rakia. And everybody had to sip a little bit of rakia on the floor because of the rest of soul of this person who died. and the rest you had to drink immediately. And before I came for the funeral, I visited my stepmother and my stepbrothers. I came to our home in Belgrade because we together came for the funeral. And it was family of my stepmother. She's from Macedonia, this Macedonian big family. And all of them said, Dominika, you have to drink rakia for your for rest in peace your father. I thought, no, I didn't eat today. I can't. Oh, you have, it is for your father's soul. So I drank one glass, second, third, I think that 3 or 4 glasses of rakia. And when I came for the funeral, I had a little bit mess in my head. And just after funeral, it started again. Dominika, you have to drink for your father. You have to drink. You have to drink. And you have to drink. You have to eat. You have to drink. You have to eat. Everybody were drinking. And in one moment, I thought that it was. I had the impression that I see a very famous Serbian Montenegro actor. He was playing in popular sitcom Kursađije. It is, I think, one of the best-known sitcom in all former Yugoslavian countries. It's about policemen from all former republics. So there is Serb, Croat, and they are all stereotypical. So Serb, it is, Serb is a little bit arrogant. He's so brave. Croat is a more intellectual distance. He's calling Serbs barbaric. And the Slovenian is very nice, very polite. He's gay. He's so sweet. And Montenegro, he's only one in uniform. He's handsome, wonderful. And my father loved very much this Montenegro. He didn't like Montenegro people, but he liked this actor and this protagonist. And during the funeral, even in the car when I was going for the funeral, I thought that the driver is looking exactly like this actor. And I asked, and it was father of my brother's friend. And I thought, I'm so sorry, but you look very similar to this actor, because it's me. I thought, really? Yes, your brother invited me. And on the funeral, during the funeral, I discovered another actors from this series. And I thought, oh my God, I drank too much. I have some hallucination. And I told to my brother, Nesha, tell me, I drank too much. It is impossible that I saw those actors from movie. No, sister, you didn't drink too much. You still should drink something. It's true. I invited all of them, and half of them came for the funeral. And it was something absolutely amazing. It is exactly like from the Kusturica movie.
That's amazing. That's a happy memory, at least.
Yes.
I wanted to know, I mean, because I'm going to have to wrap
Yes.
up here in a few minutes. I mean, what is, if you took away one thing from these trips, from what you were seeking there, which you may not have even known when you started because you didn't know what you would find. I mean, did you come away feeling more whole, or did you come away feeling more in pieces? Because there's so much sadness and happiness both in your book, also told so poignantly. How do you feel now after writing this? I know that you were so happy to get it done. It's a project, you needed to get it out of you. But do you feel more whole now, or do you feel like those pieces can't ever be put together, much like Yugoslavia itself?
I still miss Yugoslavia. I know that it was not perfect project, that it was many of mistakes, that Tito, it was a regime. He was not democratic politicians, etc. Politician. But I miss Yugoslavia because it is place of dream. I miss Yugoslavia as we miss our childhood. And I miss this country who was one of the biggest in this part of Europe. And can you imagine what could happen? I was thinking, when I was finishing this book, I started to think, what might happen if Yugoslavia joined the EU on the end of 80s? Because it was already negotiation between Yugoslavia and the current European Union. And in this case, I think that we could avoid war. And if we could avoid war, it would be still Yugoslavia. And can you imagine what will be European Union now in 2022 with Yugoslavia in the old body?
Much stronger.
Much stronger.
Or if
and
we had avoided the war, avoided the massacres, avoided
it would be
the divisions.
Yes, and you are absolutely yes, and you are absolutely right that we were able to avoid this, but we didn't because of many of mistakes. And I learned one thing. There is very, I think that most of you know Underground by Emir Kusturica. A very good movie, and in one of the final scenes, there is a dialogue between protagonists, and one say, tako długo nie ma rata, dok nie podniknie brat ruku na brata. So long we don't have war as the brother is not fighting with brother. And I think that it is a lesson for all of us. That the most cruel war is a domestic war. And it is the most difficult, and we should do everything to avoid this. And it's very easy to make some country to avoid to make some country fighting, and to make a war in some country with foreign interference.
That's where EU is heading now for.
Let's hope.
And now we have example of Ukraine, and I think that Yugoslavia should be lesson that it's better to react very quickly to avoid this than to wait and observe what will happen. Because when it will happen, it is always too late.
No, that's a lesson for now.
Yes.
Very pessimistic.
Thank you.
I don't want to be pessimistic. I hope that maybe one day really Yugoslavia maybe not will exist anymore, but maybe cooperation between those republics will be improved. But unfortunately, it is my dream, but unfortunately I'm observing what's going on in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Kosovo, in Republika Srpska. It's not optimistic. So I think that we should, as a European Union, also have in mind Western Balkans, not of course Ukraine, of course Belarus, of course internal affairs of the EU, but also we should observe very carefully what's going on in Western Balkans, especially in Bosnia and Kosovo, because when the fire will start, it is impossible to stop this fire very quickly. And now situation, a film, another movie of Dani Stanovic, No Man's Land. It was Oscar winner. And it is
that's a dark movie.
yes, and on the end, this soldier, he's on the ground, and he's under above the mine. He's lying on the bomb, and when he will move, it will be explosion. If he will not move, he will also die. I think that it is situation with Bosnia and Herzegovina, because everything what will be done now. Yes, it's optimistic. Yes, it's realistic. But I think that to finish on the positive way, or optimistic, I think that we may learn something from Balkans. It is, the sense of love of life, joie de vivre, and the openness that people people are human beings still. They are not robots who are talking only about business, focusing on numbers, focusing in the virtual world. They are still human beings with all mistakes, but also positive attitudes. And they know how to live. Of course, they know how to die as well, but they know how to live, how to love, how to
feel.
To feel, exactly, how to feel.
Thank you. I think that's a great note to end on. I really encourage everyone to read this beautiful book. And now to raise a toast, Dominika will share glasses of wine with everyone out there.
Yes, it will be Polish wine. Many thanks for delivering this, and you can also receive the copy of my book. And I would like to thank, first of all, my publisher, New Direction, my translator. His father is there. Nice. Guy is there, Edward Laycock, who made absolutely great job. It is really very good translation. And Mr. Jacek Saryusz-Wolski, and of course to you, Teri,
I didn't do
because
much.
No, you did a lot, and to Laurent, who is our host, he's somewhere there. And thank you to all of you that you came,
coming.
especially that in Brussels. I know how many things are taking place in the same time, that I know how it's difficult to find a few moments to come. So I'm very, very grateful that you came for this meeting.
Wonderful to have a full room. Thank you, everyone.